People are screaming, bomb Iran, bomb Hezbollah, bomb Hamas, bomb PIJ, bomb everyone. Everyone agrees with you, but everyone also thinks you're a lunatic. Where have you been the past 6 months? Where have you been the last 20 years? Did you see what happened on October 7th? People flooded in from Gaza. And I'm not talking about the soldiers and the militants with their guns and their weapons ready. I'm talking about civilians, unarmed. They came with bicycles. They were old men. And if they're flowing through this wall that's finally open, that was broken open by a bulldozer, they're not afraid. They're walking in and they don't expect anything to happen. In fact, they plan to loot. And some of them did kidnap people. You know why? Because they're not afraid of you. There's no deterrence. What happened with Iran when they shot 300 missiles and drones? Now, even if it's accepted that it was a limited response, they sent children running to shelters, families running to shelters. Everyone knew about it. You know why? Because they're not afraid of you. There's no deterrence. And on the Gaza envelope, non-stop rockets for decades. It wasn't so long ago, during Jerusalem Day, when rockets hit Jerusalem, and rockets went to Ben Gurion, and they said, that's it, this is our red line. What happened to this chalk red line that we always put down? It's erased, it's gone. Why? Because they're not afraid of you. There's no deterrence. So now we're 6 months into a war where the enemy took your children and took your babies and kidnapped them and raped them and mutilated them and put it on purpose on GoPros to show the whole world. And 6 months in, what do? We have a world referendum whether we should go into Rafah. And meanwhile, these hostages are held and being tortured. Who knows what they're doing to them? And you know why this is happening? Why we move them around and why we won't act? Because we're risk averse. And it's not just October 7th. Before October 7th, this tiny area of Gaza, this enclave that barely has an opening to the rest of the world through Egypt. They have nothing. They can't control their own infrastructure. They don't control their own water. They don't control their own internet. They don't control their own gas. Which means they can't flush a toilet in Gaza without Israeli permission. And yet, for decades, they're shooting rockets at Israel. Why? Why won't Israel act? Because Israel is risk averse. And the morning of, when thousands of people flooded in, and they're going to tell us it was a secretive mission. Nobody knew about it. Well, they gassed up their trucks, they got their gear ready, they charged their GoPros, the bulldozer driver woke up early, the guy with his bicycle woke up early, everyone else was ready. How did we not have intelligence on that? How do we not have human? How do we not have SIGINT? How do we not look over the wall with a pair of binoculars and see what they're doing for decades? It's not a difficult intelligence environment. We have a talk on that. And the reason why is because we're risk averse. And we won't go in there because we're afraid of what the world will say. And even in the recent months of this drawn out war, where we're afraid of our own shadow or afraid of the US shadow, or the European and the UN, what do? When the United States puts sanctions on Israeli citizens, what do we do back? Nothing. When the Canadians put an embargo for something that they don't even make, what does Israel do? Nothing. When Italy denied an Israeli diplomat, we did nothing. When Yemen shoots missiles at you, you do nothing. So now all of a sudden, when Iran decides to shoot 300 missiles and drones at you, you expect for this big response? You expect for something to happen? And people are screaming, do this and do that. Are you worried about Y2K? You signing on with dial-up? This has not been the case for decades. There was a time when Israel was known for its deterrence, known for its risky operations, known for its savviness. The leadership, the generation of leaders we have right now cannot do it. They are unable to keep us safe defensively. Forget about offensive operations. Okay, we understand this is very hard. And before all of you go and look for your documents from your Savta from Spain and your Saba from Austria and go try to get yourself passports, and before you Olim, your Anglo Olim, go back to the same places where the KKK is waiting for you, take a breath. I know. I'm also all worked up here. But there's a silver lining. There's some positive stuff here. Everything we just explained is based on our leaders, on our concepcia, on our deep state, on those beholden to the United States. It's not based on our soldiers. Our soldiers are strong. Our soldiers are savages when they need to be, as we've seen. Am Yisrael is the strongest that it's been in centuries in every field. When it comes to military, the fourth largest, strongest army in the world, according to U.S. News and World Reports. Technology, science. During COVID, the whole world was anticipating that some kind of cure or some kind of vaccine would come from Israel. The sense of achdut during COVID, during war, during terrible, terrible situations, what happens? Israel ranks in the top 5 of the happiest countries in the world. So Israel, you are strong, you are powerful, you are smart, you're in charge. And the only thing stopping you, Israel, from winning is you. But Israel, you have to remember, you're not loved by the rest of the world. You never have been loved by the rest of the world. And if you seek that as your goal, to be loved by everyone, you're destined to failure. Because if that was the goal, we would have disappeared a long, long time ago. And all of those inherent qualities are not changeable. What is changeable is our leadership. And we need to have leadership who are not afraid of the United Nations and the EU and the United States. And then they won't be risk averse. And they'll understand what it means to live in the Middle East, where you have to have a sense of deterrence, which means strength, period. And you have to know your own strength and not be afraid to use it. And leaders who understand that what they're doing is correct. Not leaders who actually believe the opposition. Leaders who might even believe that we are indeed occupiers of our own land. If you took a Jew 200 years ago from Yemen, 300 years ago from Poland, 100 years ago from Argentina, and you brought them here today, what would they have in common? They would all faint to see a Jewish army and a Jewish police and all of the Jews from all over the world returning to their homeland.